The
Excuse me,
sun
could you
dipped
tell me how to
low
get to
over
the
the
main road?
rolling
Of
hills of
course.
Willow
Just
Creek,
head straight
Montana,
down this road
casting
and
a
you can't
golden
miss
glow
it.
across
And
the
these
endless
are fresh
fields
from
of
the
wheat
garden.
that swayed like a restless sea. Dust motes danced in the fading light, carried by a breeze that whispered of simpler times of lives, unburdened by the weight of ambition. And into this quiet tableau rolled a battered SUV, its tires crunching against the gravel of a narrow country road. Behind the wheel sat Harry Castello, a man whose name once echoed through the marble halls of New York's financial elite. His sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes, now softened by exhaustion, betrayed little of the billionaire he was. Clad in a faded denim jacket and worn jeans, he looked more like a drifter than the heir to a corporate empire. A single backpack rested on the passenger seat, a humble companion for a man fleeing the gilded cage of his past. Harry slowed the vehicle, his gaze sweeping over the landscape. Willow Creek was a world apart from the frenetic pulse of Manhattan, its skyscrapers, flashing cameras, and relentless boardroom battles replaced by the gentle hum of crickets and the distant lowing of cattle. He had driven for hours, leaving behind the city's clamor, the expectations of his family, and a life that felt increasingly like a noose tightening around his neck. A scandal, its details still shrouded in shadow, had been the final straw, a whispered betrayal in the upper echelons of Castello enterprises that threatened to unravel his carefully curated existence. He needed refuge, a place to breathe, to rediscover the man he might have been before wealth defined him. As he stepped out of the SUV, the cool evening air brushed against his skin, carrying the scent of earth and hay. The road stretched empty before him, flanked by fields that shimmered under the twilight. He closed his eyes, letting the silence seep into his bones. For the first time in years, no paparazzi were lurking, no urgent emails demanding his attention, no family obligations pressing against his resolve. Just him, the open sky, and the promise of anonymity. The rhythmic creak broke his reverie of a wooden cart. Turning, he saw a figure approaching a woman, her silhouette framed against the amber horizon. She was tall, her skin a rich ebony that glowed under the sun's last rays, her hair a cascade of tight curls pulled loosely into a bun. She pushed a cart laden with vegetables, bright tomatoes, crisp greens, and golden ears of corn, her movements purposeful, yet strained under the weight. Her eyes sharp and discerning, locked onto Harry's, and a spark of amusement flickered in their depths. "Hey, city boy," she called, her voice warm but laced with a teasing edge. "You planning to stand there like a scarecrow all evening? You're blocking my way." Harry blinked, caught off guard by her directness. In New York, people bowed or fawned in his presence, their words dripping with deference. But this woman, Mira Panaligan, as he would soon learn, had no such inclinations. Her floral sundress swayed as she maneuvered the cart, her sandals kicking up small dust clouds. There was a quiet strength in her, a confidence that needed no adornment, no pretense. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, and the realization stirred something unfamiliar in his chest. "Sorry," he stammered, stepping aside. "I didn't mean to turn my road into a photo shoot," Mira quipped, raising an eyebrow as she passed. Her cart wobbled a wheel, catching on a rut, and she muttered under her breath, wrestling it back into line. Harry hesitated, then jogged forward, his hands reaching for the cart's handle. "Here, let me help." He offered, his voice softer now, almost tentative. He wasn't used to assisting people usually scrambled to serve him, but Mira's presence demanded something different, something real. She paused, sizing him up with a look equal to skepticism and curiosity. "Do you know how to handle this? You don't exactly scream farmhand, with that fancy watch peeking out from your sleeve." Harry glanced at the sleek timepiece, a relic of his old life he'd forgotten to remove, and chuckled a low, self-deprecating sound. Fair point. But I'm a quick learner. Where are you headed? Mira tilted her head, her eyes narrowing as if peering into his soul. You've got no plan, do you? Just rolled into Willow Creek looking like a lost puppy. What's your deal, stranger? The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Harry could have lied, spun a tale to deflect her curiosity. But something in her gaze, open, unguarded, yet fiercely perceptive, made him want to be honest. Or at least as sincere as he could afford to be. Just needed a change, he said, his voice quieter now, the weight of his words carrying the ghosts of his past, somewhere far from the noise. Mira studied him for a moment longer, then shrugged, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. You picked the right place for quiet, but you look like you haven't eaten since the Clinton administration. Come on, my folks' place is just up the road. Can't leave you out here looking like you're auditioning for a survival show. Harry's lips twitched into a smile, the first genuine one he'd felt in weeks. You are always this generous to strangers, she shot back. Only the ones who don't annoy me first, already turning to lead the way. Keep up, city boy, and don't drop my vegetables. As they walked, the cart rattling between them, Harry stole glances at Mira. When it came, her laughter was like the chime of a bell, clear, unfiltered, and utterly disarming. She spoke of Willow Creek with a warmth that bordered on reverence, pointing out landmarks as they passed the old oak where kids carved their initials. In this general store, gossip flowed as freely as the coffee, the distant silhouette of the Rocky Mountains, cradling the town like a protective embrace. Her world was small, but it was alive, vibrant, in a way Harry's penthouse had never been. The Panaligan home came into view, a modest wooden farmhouse, its paint peeling, but its windows glowing with the promise of warmth. Mira's mother, a stout woman with a kind face and hands calloused from years of labor, greeted them at the door. Her father, a quiet man with a weathered cowboy hat, nodded from the porch, his eyes sharp but not unkind. Inside, the air smelled of fresh cornbread and simmering stew, starkly contrasting the sterile elegance of Harry's usual dining experiences. Sit, Mira said, gesturing to a worn wooden table. She handed him a glass of water, the simplicity of the gesture striking him. In New York, water came in crystal decanters or imported bottles. It was drawn from a well served in a chipped glass and tasted better than anything he'd ever known. Thanks, he said, his voice low as he met her eyes. I'm Harry, by the way. Mira raised an eyebrow, setting down her basket of vegetables. Just Harry. No last name. You running from the law or something? He laughed, the sound surprising even himself. Harry's had enough for now. And you are Mira Panaligan, she said, extending a hand with a grin. Welcome to Willow Creek. Harry, no last name. Please don't make me regret letting you in. Her hand was warm, her grip firm, and in that brief moment of contact, Harry felt a spark, a flicker of something he couldn't name, but couldn't ignore. As he sat at the table watching Mira move easily through her world, he wondered if this quiet town might hold more than a temporary escape. Perhaps, in its simplicity, it held the key to unraveling the man he'd buried beneath years of wealth and expectation. But beneath the warmth of the moment, a shadow lingered. Harry's past wasn't just a life he'd left behind. It was a storm waiting to catch up. The scandal, the family pressures, the fiancé he'd abandoned were all threads of a life he couldn't entirely outrun. And as he watched Mira laugh with her mother, unaware of the weight he carried, he felt a pang of guilt. How long could he keep his secrets in a place where honesty seemed to be the only currency that mattered? The dawn broke over Willow Creek with a quiet grace, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold. Harry Castello stirred in the guest room of the Panaligan farmhouse, the creak of the wooden floorboards beneath his feet, a stark contrast to the polished marble of his Manhattan penthouse. The room was small, its walls adorned with faded photographs of rodeos and family gatherings, the air carrying the faint scent of cedar and earth. He rubbed his eyes, disoriented by the absence of his usual luxuries. No silk sheets, no climate-controlled hum of an air conditioner, just the soft chirping of birds outside and the distant clatter of pots from the kitchen. He stepped onto the porch where the morning air was crisp, tinged with the promise of a Montana summer. Mira was already there, her silhouette sharp against the rising sun. She wore a plaid shirt tucked into worn jeans, her curls tied back with a bandana, and she was slicing tomatoes with a precision that spoke of years spent in this rhythm. Her presence was magnetic, not in the polished way of the socialites Harry knew, but in a raw, unapologetic vitality that made the world feel more alive. "Morning city boy," she called, without looking up, her voice a blend of amusement and challenge. "Thought you'd sleep till noon like some fancy hotel guest." Harry grinned, leaning against the porch railing. "Not a chance. I'm tougher than I look." She snorted, finally glancing at him, her dark eyes gleaming with mischief. "We'll see about that. Grab that basket and come with me. You said you're a quick learner. Let's put it to the test." The basket was heavier than he expected, filled with tools and seeds for the day's work. Mira led him to a field behind the house, where rows of wheat swayed alongside patches of vegetables, carrots, zucchini, and sweet corn. The sun was climbing now, its warmth seeping into his skin, and Harry felt a strange exhilaration as he followed Mira's lead. She showed him how to check the soil, her hands moving with a practiced ease that belied the effort involved. Her instructions were sharp but patient, and her laughter quickly bubbled up when he fumbled with a hoe or tripped over a furrow. "You're not half bad," she said, after an hour wiping sweat from her brow for a guy who probably never got dirt under his nails. Harry wiped his hands on his jeans, a smudge of earth staining the fabric. "I've had my share of messes," he replied, his tone light, but his eyes shadowed. He thought of the boardroom battles, the whispered accusations of fraud that had rocked Castello Enterprises, the weight of a name that carried both privilege and chains. Those burdens felt distant here in the dirt of Willow Creek, yet they lingered like a storm on the horizon. Mira didn't press, but her gaze lingered on him, as if she could sense the secrets he held close. Instead, she handed him a canteen of water, her fingers brushing his for a fleeting moment. "Drink up. You're not collapsing on my watch." The day unfolded in a rhythm of labor and quiet moments of connection. They worked side by side, planting seeds and pulling weeds, their conversation weaving between playful banter and silences that felt comfortable, not strained. Harry found himself watching Mira, her quick smile, the way she tucked a stray curl behind her ear, the strength in her shoulders as she hauled a sack of compost. She was a force unyielding, yet warm, and he felt drawn to her in a thrilling and unsettling way. As dusk settled, they sat on the porch, sharing a pitcher of iced tea Mira's mother had made. The sky was a tapestry of purples and oranges, and the mountains were a dark silhouette in the distance. Harry leaned back, his body aching in a way that felt earned, not punishing. "This place," he said almost to himself, "is alive, not like the city. New York feels like it's trying to swallow you whole." Mira tilted her head, her expression softening. "Willow Creek's got a heartbeat, that's for sure. But it's not always easy. Folks here work hard, and sometimes it's still not enough." Her words carried a weight Harry hadn't noticed before, a hint of something unspoken. Before he could ask, heavy boots on gravel interrupted them. A man approached, tall, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face and a cowboy hat tipped low. It was Mira's father, Mira Panaligan, his eyes narrowing as he took in Harry's presence. "Who's this?" Amos asked, his voice gruff but not hostile. "Harry," Mira said, standing to meet her father's gaze. He's passing through and needs a place to crash. He could earn his keep. Amos studied Harry, his expression unreadable. Do you know how to work in a field, son? I'm learning, Harry replied, meeting the older man's eyes. There was a challenge and a flicker of respect, as if Amos recognized something in Harry's determination. As long as you pull your weight, Amos said finally, tipping his hat before heading inside. But as the door closed, Harry caught a snippet of conversation between Amos and Mira's mother, their voices low but urgent. Words like debt and carding floated through the air, sharp and ominous. Harry's instincts, honed by years in cutthroat boardrooms, prickled. There was trouble here beneath the surface of this idyllic town, and Mira was caught in its web. The next morning, Mira woke him at dawn with a knock on his door. She called, "Rise and shine, city boy." Bright voice, but edged with purpose. We're heading to the farmer's market today. You're on tomato duty. The Willow Creek farmer's market was a vibrant affair, with stalls lined up along the town square, their tables groaning under the weight of fresh produce, homemade jams, and artisanal cheeses. Locals mingled their laughter, mingling with the twang of a banjo from a nearby busker. Harry stood behind Mira's stall, arranging tomatoes with a care he hadn't known he possessed. The townsfolk eyed him curiously, some with warmth, others with the wariness reserved for outsiders, but Mira navigated the crowd easily, her smile disarming even the grumpiest customers. "You're a natural," Harry said, watching her charm an older woman into buying an extra pound of zucchini. "Years of practice," Mira replied, tossing him a grin. "On the other hand, you need to stop stacking those tomatoes like they're modern art." He laughed, the sound foreign to his own ears. But the lightness of the moment was shattered when a shadow fell over the stall. A man loomed before them, carding the same name Harry had overheard the night before. He was broad with a swagger that spoke of unchecked power, his eyes cold as they fixed on Mira. Mira Panaligan carding drawled, his voice dripping with menace. "Your daddy still owes me. Time's running out." Mira's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "Take it up with him, Carding. I don't handle his debts." Carding leaned closer, his smile predatory. "You know how this works, girl. Family debts are everyone's problem." Harry's hands clenched into fists, his protective instincts flaring. He stepped forward, placing himself between Mira and Carding. "Back off," he said, his voice low but firm, carrying the authority he'd once wielded in boardrooms. "She said, she's not involved." Carding's eyes narrowed, sizing Harry up. "And who's this, your new bodyguard?" "Just a friend," Harry replied, his gaze unwavering. "But I don't like bullies." The air crackled with tension, the market's chatter fading, as onlookers sensed the brewing conflict. Mira's hand brushed Harry's arm, a subtle signal to stand down, but her eyes held a flicker of gratitude. Carding smirked, stepping back with a mock salute. He said, "We'll see how long you last, city boy," before sauntering off, his men trailing behind. Mira exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "She said you didn't have to do that," but her voice had a warmth that hadn't been there before. "Couldn't help it," Harry admitted, his heart still racing. "You okay?" She nodded, but her eyes were troubled, a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. She said, "Let's just get through the day," returning to the stall. But as they worked, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just stepped into something bigger than himself, something that tied Mira to a danger he didn't yet understand. That evening, as they sat on the porch once more, the stars glittering above, Harry ventured a question. "What's the deal with Carding?" Mira's fingers tightened around her glass of tea, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "He's a local loan shark. My dad borrowed money years ago to save the farm. Carding's been holding it over us ever since." Harry wanted to press further to offer help, but the weight of his own secrets held him back. How could he tell her he had the means to erase her family's debt in a heartbeat, when doing so would mean revealing the life he was running from? Instead, he reached for her hand, a tentative gesture that felt more honest than any words he could offer. Mira looked at their joined hands, then up at him, her eyes searching. "You're not what I expected, Harry," she said softly. "But don't go getting any ideas. You've got a lot to prove if you're sticking around." He smiled, the challenge igniting something within him. He said, "I'm not going anywhere," and for the first time he meant it. But as the night deepened, the shadow of Carding's threat and the secrets Harry carried loomed large, a reminder that Willow Creek's peace was as fragile as the heart he was beginning to open. The morning sun draped Willow Creek in a golden haze, its rays filtering through the wheat fields and casting long shadows across the Panaligan family's farm. Harry Castello stood at the edge of a vegetable patch, his sleeves rolled up, a sheen of sweat glistening on his brow. The Montana air was sharp with the scent of soil and dew, a far cry from the sterile air-conditioned boardrooms of New York. His hands, once accustomed to signing multi-million-dollar contracts, now gripped a hoe, clumsily breaking the earth under Mira Panaligan's watchful eye. She stood a few paces away, her dark skin glowing in the morning light, her curls tucked beneath a faded baseball cap. Her presence was a quiet force, grounding and electrifying, and Harry found himself stealing glances at her, each lingering longer than the last. "Keep your grip steady, city boy," Mira called, her voice a blend of amusement and authority. "You're digging a row, not auditioning for a Western." She demonstrated with her own hoe that her movements were fluid, as if the earth bent to her will. Harry tried to mimic her, but his row was uneven, earning a playful roll of her eyes. "Not bad for a rookie, but don't quit your day job," Harry chuckled, wiping dirt from his cheek. "What makes you think I have a day job?" Mira raised an eyebrow, her lips curving into a teasing smile. "Oh, come on. That watch of yours screams Wall Street or something equally fancy. You're not fooling anyone." Her words, though light, brushed against the edges of Harry's guarded truth. The watch, a sleek, custom-made piece from a Swiss jeweler, was a relic of his past, a reminder of the billionaire he was trying to leave behind. He deflected with a grin. "Maybe I have good taste. Or maybe you're running from something." She countered, her tone still playful, but with a piercing undercurrent that quickened Harry's pulse. She didn't press further, instead, tossing him a pair of work gloves. "Come on, we've got a market to prep for. Those tomatoes won't sell themselves." The Willow Creek Farmers Market was a vibrant mosaic of color and sound, its stalls brimming with the bounty of Montana's summer golden corn, ruby-red apples, and jars of wildflower honey that caught the light like amber. Townsfolk wove through the crowd, their voices mingling with the twang of a local bluegrass band. Harry stood behind Mira's stall, arranging vegetables with a care that surprised even himself. He was out of place here, his city-bred demeanor a stark contrast to the easy familiarity of the locals. Yet Mira's presence made it feel like he belonged. She moved through the chaos with a dancer's grace, her laughter bright as she bantered with customers, her warmth drawing smiles from even the gruffest ranchers. "You're getting the hang of this," she said, nudging him as he handed a bag of zucchini to a customer. "Keep it up, and I might make you a permanent fixture. Careful what you wish for." "Harry," replied his voice low, a hint of something deeper threading through his words. Their eyes met, and the market's din faded momentarily, leaving only the unspoken pull between them, a spark that flickered brighter with each shared glance. The moment was shattered when a shadow loomed over the stall. Carding, the loan shark, who had confronted Mira the previous day, stood before them, his broad frame casting a chill over the warm morning. His eyes cold and calculating, fixed on Mira, ignoring Harry entirely. "Mira Panaligan," he drawled, his voice dripping with menace. Your daddy's payment is overdue. You know what happens when folks don't pay up. Mira's jaw tightened, but her composure held firm, a testament to her strength. I told you Carding talked to my father. This isn't my debt. Carding leaned closer, his smirk predatory. Family business is everyone's business, sweetheart. You'd do well to remember that. Harry's blood surged, his protective instincts flaring. He stepped forward, his voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. She said it's not her problem. Back off, or we'll have a bigger one. The market hushed, heads turning as the tension crackled like static. Carding's gaze shifted to Harry, sizing him with amusement and disdain. What's this? Does the city boy think he's a hero now? He stepped closer, his men flanking him, their presence a silent threat. You don't know what you're stepping into, stranger. Harry didn't flinch. His years of navigating corporate power plays lent him a quiet authority. I know enough to see you're all talk. Try me. Mira's hand grazed Harry's arm, a subtle gesture urging restraint, but her eyes held a flicker of gratitude, a warmth that softened the edges of her defiance. Carding laughed a low, grating sound and stepped back. He said, we'll see how tough you are when the bill comes due, turning away with his men in tow, leaving a ripple of unease in their wake. The crowd resumed its chatter, but Mira's shoulders remained tense. Harry turned to her, his voice softer now. You okay? She nodded, brushing a curl from her face. Yeah, thanks for stepping in, but don't make a habit of it. Carding's trouble, and I don't need you getting caught in the crossfire. Harry said, I'm not afraid of a guy like him, his tone earnest. And I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone. Mira studied him, her expression unreadable, but a faint smile tugged at her lips. You're something else, Harry. Let's get through the day. As they worked through the morning, Harry felt the weight of Carding's threat lingering like a storm cloud. Yet amidst the bustle of the market, there were moments of lightness. Children darting through the crowd, their laughter infectious. An older man sharing stories of rodeos past. Mira's quick wit as she haggled with a customer over the price of carrots. Each moment wove Harry deeper into the fabric of Willow Creek, and deeper still into the orbit of the woman beside him. That evening, they sat on the Panaligan porch, the sky ablaze with stars. Mira sipped lemonade, her gaze distant, while Harry traced the rim of his glass searching for words. Have you ever thought about leaving this place? He asked, his voice soft, almost hesitant. Mira tilted her head, her eyes catching the starlight. Sometimes. But this is home. My family's roots are here, deep as the oaks. Leaving would feel like cutting out a piece of myself. She paused, then turned to him, her expression curious. What about you? What's got you running to a place like this? Harry's chest tightened, the truth hovering on the tip of his tongue. He could tell her about the scandal, a betrayal by a trusted partner at Castello Enterprises, whispers of embezzlement threatening to tarnish his family's name. He could tell her about the fiancé he'd left behind, a marriage arranged to secure alliances, not love. But the words felt too heavy, too raw. Instead, he offered a half-truth. I needed to find something real. Something that wasn't just deals and deadlines. Mira's gaze softened, and for a moment he thought she might press further. But she only nodded, her voice quiet. Well, you found it. Willow Creek's as real as it gets. Just don't expect it to be easy. Their eyes met, and the air between them hummed with unspoken possibilities. Harry felt the pull of her strength, authenticity, and how she made the world feel both vast and intimate. But as the night deepened, the shadow of Carding's threat and the secrets Harry carried cast a quiet unease, a reminder that even in this haven, storms were never far off. The Montana sky stretched vast and endless above Willow Creek, its vastness mirroring the possibilities Harry Castello felt stirring within him. The days had begun to blur into a rhythm of labor and quiet moments with Mira Panaligan, each one weaving him deeper into the fabric of this small town. The Panaligan farm, with its weathered barns and golden wheat fields, had become a sanctuary. In this place, the weight of his past, a scandal at Castello Enterprises, a fiancée he'd never loved, seemed to fade beneath the honest ache of work. Yet as he stood in the early morning light, mending a fence under Mira's watchful eye, Harry knew the past was never truly gone. It was a shadow waiting to reclaim him. Mira moved with a quiet grace, her dark skin glowing against the backdrop of the rising sun. Her curls were tucked into a loose bun, and her plaid shirt was rolled up to her elbows, revealing the strength in her arms as she hammered a post into the ground. "You're slowing down, city boy," she teased, her voice warm, but laced with a challenge. "Don't tell me you're dreaming of air-conditioned offices already." Harry flashed a grin, his blue eyes catching the light. "Not a chance. This is the best workout I've had in years." He drove his hammer down the impact, sending a satisfying jolt through his arms. The labor was grounding a stark contrast to the sterile negotiations of his former life, but Mira's presence made it exhilarating. Her laughter, quick wit, and how she met his gaze without flinching, felt like a revelation, a glimpse of a life he hadn't dared to imagine. Their banter was interrupted by the distant hum of an engine, a sleek black limousine that looked utterly alien against the dusty roads of Willow Creek. Harry's stomach tightened as the vehicle slowed, its tinted windows reflecting the morning light like a predator's eyes. The door opened, and out stepped Beatrice Montemayor, her presence as jarring as a storm in a clear sky. She was statuesque, her blonde hair swept into an impeccable chignon, her tailored suit and high heels a testament to the world Harry had left behind. Her green eyes scanned the farm with disdain and disbelief, landing on Harry with a possessive and incredulous look. "Harry Castello," she said, her voice sharp as cut glass. "Do you know what you've put me through?" Mira paused, her hammer still in hand, her eyes flicking between Harry and the newcomer. Harry felt the air shift, the warmth of the morning giving way to a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Beatrice," he said, his tone measured but firm, "what are you doing here?" Beatrice stepped closer, her heels sinking into the soft earth, her expression a mask of controlled anger. "What am I doing here? You vanish without a word, ignore my calls, leave your family in chaos, and have the nerve to ask me that." She gestured at the farm, her lip curling. "This is where you've been hiding, playing farmer in some backwater town." Mira's jaw tightened, but she remained silent, her gaze steady as she assessed Beatrice. Harry stepped forward, his voice low but resolute. "I'm not hiding. I'm living. There's a difference." Beatrice laughed, a brittle sound that grated against the quiet of the farm. "Living. Harry, you're a Castello. You belong in boardrooms, not barns." Her eyes flicked to Mira, taking in her work-worn clothes and the dirt smudged on her cheek. "And who is this, your little distraction?" The word was a barb, and Harry felt his temper flare. "Her name is Mira," he said, his voice edged with steel, "and she's more real than anything you or I ever were in New York." Mira's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, but she held her ground, her posture unyielding. "I don't know who you are, lady," she said, her voice calm but firm, "but you don't get to come here and talk like that. This is my home. Show some respect." Beatrice's smile was cold, patronizing. "Oh, honey, I'm sure this is charming for you, but Harry doesn't belong here. He's got responsibilities, a company, a family, a fiancé. She turned to Harry, her tone softening, but no less commanding. Come back with me, Harry. This little adventure of yours is over. Harry's heart pounded the weight of his past, crashing against the fragile peace he'd found. He looked at Mira, her eyes searching his, and in that moment, he saw not just a woman, but a world where he could be more than his name and wealth. He said, I'm not going back. His voice steady despite the storm within. Not to you, not to that life. I'm done. Beatrice's face hardened, her composure cracking. You're throwing away everything, your legacy, your future for this. She gestured at the farm at Mira, her voice rising. You think this is love? It's a fantasy, Harry. You'll tire of it, and when you do, don't expect me to be waiting. Harry took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. It's not a fantasy. It's real, and it's mine. The air crackled with tension, the silence that followed heavy with the weight of his words. Beatrice stared at him, her eyes narrowing, then turned on her heel, her heels clicking as she stormed back to the limousine. The engine roared to life, and within moments she was gone, leaving a cloud of dust in her wake. Mira exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly, but her eyes were guarded. Fiancé, she said, her tone light, but tinged with something more profound, doubt perhaps, or hurt. You've got some explaining to do, city boy. Harry ran a hand through his hair, his chest tight. It's not what you think, he said, his voice softer now. It was an arrangement, something my family wanted. I never loved her. That's why I left. Mira studied him, her expression unreadable. You sure know how to pick your battles, she said finally, a faint smile tugging at her lips. But don't think this gets you off the hook. You want to stick around. Prove it. Tomorrow we're tending the horses, and I'm not going easy on you. Harry laughed, the sound easing the tension between them. Wouldn't expect anything less. As they returned to work, the shadow of Beatrice's visit lingered, a reminder of the life Harry had left behind. But with each moment spent beside Mira, each shared glance and fleeting touch, he felt the pull of Willow Creek grow stronger. It wasn't just the town, it was her. And yet the secrets he still carried, the scandal that had driven him here, loomed like a storm on the horizon, threatening to unravel the fragile bond they were building. The dawn broke over Willow Creek with a quiet splendor, the first rays of sunlight threading through the mist that clung to the wheat fields like a lover's whisper. Harry Castello stood at the edge of the Panaligan farm, his breath visible in the crisp Montana air, his heart a tumult of anticipation and resolve. The Willow Creek rodeo loomed before him, a crucible of courage and grit that Mira Panaligan had set as his proving ground. Her challenge had been both a jest and a gauntlet, a test to see if he, a man born to boardrooms and penthouses, could truly belong in her world of dust and determination. As he adjusted the borrowed cowboy hat, perched awkwardly on his head, he felt the weight of her gaze, her dark eyes, a beacon of fire and faith that stirred something deep within him. Mira stood nearby, her silhouette sharp against the rising sun, her curls tucked beneath a faded bandana. Her plaid shirt was rolled to her elbows, her jeans dusted with the earth of the farm she called home. You ready for this, city boy? She asked, her voice a blend of mischief and expectation. The rodeo's no joke. One wrong move and you're eating dirt. Harry grinned, though his stomach churned with nerves. He said, I've faced worse than a bucking bronco, his tone lighter than he felt. In truth, the corporate battles of New York, where betrayal and ambition were cloaked in smiles, had been far more perilous. But this was different. This was for Mira, for the life he was beginning to imagine, and the stakes felt higher than any deal he'd ever brokered. The rodeo grounds were a kaleidoscope of color and sound, celebrating Montana's rugged heart. Stalls lined the fairgrounds, offering everything from homemade pies to leather saddles, while the air carried the scent of grilled burgers and the twang of a steel guitar. Townsfolk gathered in droves, their cowboy hats bobbing like a sea of felt, their laughter mingling with the bellows of livestock. Harry stood at the edge of the arena, his borrowed chaps stiff against his legs, his heart pounding, as he watched riders before him wrestle with beasts that seemed forged from fury itself. Mira was in the stands, her presence a lodestar amidst the chaos. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with amusement, and something softer pride perhaps, or hope. "Don't die out there," she'd said, as she'd adjusted his hat, her fingers brushing his cheek in a gesture that lingered in his memory. The memory fueled him now, as he climbed onto the bronco, its muscles rippling beneath him like a storm waiting to break. The gate swung open and the world dissolved into a blur of motion and adrenaline. The bronco bucked its hooves pounding the earth, and Harry clung to the reins, his body jolted by each twist and turn. 8 seconds felt like an eternity, each a battle against gravity and fear. The crowd roared their cheers, a distant hum as he fought to stay upright. Then with a final lurch, he was thrown landing in the dirt, with a thud that knocked the breath from his lungs. Dust clouded his vision, but as he scrambled to his feet, the crowd's applause washed over him, a wave of acceptance that felt like a homecoming. Mira was there when he staggered out of the arena, her laughter bright as she clapped him on the shoulder. She said, "You didn't break anything," her eyes sparkling. "I'll give you points for style, though. You looked like a fish out of water." Harry laughed, brushing dirt from his jeans. "I stayed on longer than I expected. That's got to count for something." "It does," she said, her voice softening, her gaze holding his with an intensity that made his heart skip. "You showed up, Harry. That's more than most would do." The moment was fleeting, broken by the arrival of an unexpected figure. A sleek black sedan pulled into the fairgrounds, its polished exterior starkly contrasting with the dusty pickups surrounding it. The door opened, and Don Leonardo, Castello, Harry's father, stepped out, his tailored suit and stern expression, as out of place as a diamond in a coal mine. His gray eyes, sharp as flint, locked onto Harry, and the air grew heavy with unspoken tension. "Harry Don Leonardo," said, his voice a low growl that carried the weight of years of authority. "We need to talk." Mira's posture stiffened, her eyes flicking between Harry and the imposing figure before them. Harry felt a surge of protectiveness for himself and the life he was building here. "Not now, Dad," he said, his voice firm. "I'm in the middle of something." Don Leonardo's gaze swept over the rodeo, the crowd, and Mira, his lip curling slightly. This is what you've traded your legacy for. A circus of cowboys in dirt." Mira stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fire in her eyes. "This is our home, sir. If you've got a problem with it, you can discuss it with me." The crowd hushed, sensing the brewing storm. Don Leonardo's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of respect in them, as if Mira's defiance had caught him off guard. Harry stepped between them, his heart pounding. "She's right," he said. "This is where I belong. Not in your boardrooms, not in your deals. Here." Don Leonardo's jaw tightened, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You're a Castello, Harry. You don't get to walk away from that. Not without consequences." Harry met his father's gaze, unflinching. "I'm done living for your name, Dad. I found something worth more than that." The announcer's voice broke the standoff, calling the next rider to the arena. Don Leonardo turned, his expression unreadable, and strode back to his car. "This isn't over," he said before the door slammed shut, the sedan disappearing into the dust. Mira exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "Your dad's intense," she said, her tone light, but her eyes searching. "You sure you're ready to take him on?" Harry smiled, though the weight of his father's words lingered. "For you? Yeah, I'm ready." As they walked back to the stands, the rodeo's energy swirling around them, Harry felt a shift within him. The challenge of the rodeo had been a test of courage, but the real battle was beginning. Mira's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that felt like a promise, and he knew that whatever lay ahead, he would face it with her by his side. The road to New York City stretched before Harry Castello and Mira Panaligan like a ribbon of asphalt and uncertainty. The hum of the rental car's engine, a steady counterpoint to the silence between them. The vast fields of Willow Creek had given way to the concrete jungle of Manhattan, its skyscrapers clawing at the sky, their glass facades reflecting a world Harry had once ruled, but now felt alien. He glanced at Mira, her profile sharp against the city's glow, her dark curls loose and framing her face. She was a vision of strength and grace, her presence a grounding force amidst the chaos of his past. Yet as they approached the Castello family's Upper East Side mansion, Harry's heart tightened with dread and determination. He was bringing Mira into the lion's den and prayed she could withstand its claws. The decision to bring Mira to New York was his bold move to confront his family and declare his intentions. After the rodeo, after standing up to his father, Harry knew he could no longer straddle two worlds. Mira had agreed, her eyes wary, but resolute, her condition clear. "I'm not here to play nice with your fancy folks, Harry. I'm here for you, but I'm not changing who I am." Her words had been a vow, and as they stepped into the opulent foyer of the Castello residence, Harry felt the weight of that vow pressing against him. The mansion was a monument to wealth, its marble floors gleaming its chandeliers, casting prisms of light across walls adorned with priceless art. Mira's boots, still dusted with Montana earth, clicked softly against the floor, a quiet rebellion against the polished sterility of the space. Harry's mother, Doña Olivia, greeted them at the top of the grand staircase. Her silver hair was swept into an elegant bun, and her designer dress was starkly contrasted with the jeans and blouse. Her smile was polite, but cold, her eyes assessing Mira with a scrutiny that made Harry's blood simmer. "Harry, darling," Olivia said, her voice smooth as silk, but edged with steel. "You've brought a guest. This is Mira Panaligan." Harry said, his hand resting lightly on Mira's back, a gesture of solidarity. "She's not just a guest, she's the reason I'm here." Olivia's eyebrow arched, her gaze flicking to Mira. "Charming," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "From, where did you say, Montana, Willow Creek?" Mira replied, her voice steady, her chin lifted. "It's a small town, but it's home. You don't get out there much." Olivia's smile tightened, but Beatrice Montemayor swept into the room before she could respond, her presence as commanding as ever. Her blonde hair was flawless, her dress a creation of haute couture, but her eyes were hard fixed on Mira with a mix of disdain and curiosity. "So this is the farm girl," she said, her voice laced with venom. "Harry, really? You left me for this?" Mira didn't flinch, her gaze meeting Beatrice's with a fire that made Harry's chest swell with pride. "I don't know what your deal is," Mira said, her tone calm but unyielding. "But I'm not here to be your punching bag." Harry made his choice. "Deal with it." Beatrice's laugh was sharp-cutting. "Oh, honey, you have no idea what you're stepping into. Harry's world isn't some quaint little farm. It's power, money, legacy. Can you keep up?" Harry stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Enough, Beatrice. Mira's more than enough for me. She's real, something you wouldn't understand." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to choke on. Olivia's eyes narrowed, her voice cold. "Harry, you're throwing away everything we've built for a whim." This infatuation. It's not an infatuation, Harry said, his hand finding Mira's, their fingers intertwining. It's love. And it's worth more than your deals, mergers, and empty promises. Mira's hand tightened in his, her eyes meeting his with surprise and warmth. But before she could speak, Don Leonardo entered his presence, a storm cloud in the room. Enough of this, he said, his voice a low rumble. Harry, you're embarrassing yourself. And this young lady, he glanced at Mira, his expression unreadable, deserves better than to be dragged into your rebellion. Mira's voice cut through the silence, sharp and clear. With all due respect, sir, I'm not being dragged anywhere. I'm here because I choose to be. And Harry's not the one embarrassing himself. The room froze, the audacity of her words hanging in the air. Don Leonardo's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of respect breaking through his stern facade. Olivia, however, was less impressed. You're bold, she said, her tone icy. But boldness won't survive in our world. Then it's a good thing I'm not staying in your world, Harry said, his voice steady. Mira and I are building something else, something better. The following argument was a clash of wills. Harry's defiance pitted against his family's expectations. Beatrice hurled accusations. Olivia wielded guilt like a weapon, and Don Leonardo's silence was a judgment. But through it all, Mira stood tall, her presence a quiet strength that anchored Harry. When they finally left the mansion, the city's lights blurring past them, Harry felt a weight lift, replaced by a clarity he hadn't known he could possess. In the car, Mira was quiet, her gaze fixed on the skyline. That was intense, she said finally, her voice soft but steady. Your family's something else. Harry reached for her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I meant what I said in there. You're my future, Mira. She turned to him, her eyes searching. You sure about that? Because that world. She gestured at the city. It's still part of you. Not anymore, he said, his voice firm. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. Mira's smile was slow, tentative, but lit up the darkness. All right, city boy, she said, her voice warm with possibility. Let's see if you can keep up with me back home. As they drove away from the city, the lights fading in the rearview mirror, Harry felt a surge of hope. The battle with his family was far from over, but he knew he could face anything with Mira. The road back to Willow Creek stretched before them, a path to a future they would forge together, one dusty step at a time. The summer sun bathed Willow Creek in a golden embrace, its light filtering through the ancient willow tree that stood sentinel at the edge of the Panaligan farm. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and freshly cut hay, a symphony of Montana's heart that hummed beneath the preparations for a day unlike any other. Harry Castello stood beneath the willow's drooping branches, his white linen shirt crisp against his tanned skin, his heart a kaleidoscope of joy and nervous anticipation. Today was his wedding day, the culmination of a journey that had begun with a dusty road and a chance encounter with Mira Panaligan, the woman who had rewritten the script of his life. The field was transformed into a vision of rustic elegance. Wooden benches draped with soft white linens lined a makeshift aisle strewn with rose petals. Lanterns hung from the willow's branches, their glass catching the sunlight like fireflies waiting for dusk. The townsfolk of Willow Creek bustled about, their laughter and chatter, a warm undercurrent to the banjo and fiddle music drifting from a local band. It was a far cry from the opulent ballrooms of New York, yet Harry had never felt more at home. This was Mira's world, and now it was his, a shared tapestry woven from love and defiance. Mira was inside the farmhouse, preparing in a room filled with the soft murmurs of her mother Ruth and a few close friends. Harry caught glimpses of her through the window, her silhouette framed by the morning light, and his breath caught at the thought of her in the white lace dress she'd chosen, a creation by a local seamstress. Breathtaking, yet straightforward, like the woman herself. He knew her dark curls would cascade freely, adorned with a single wildflower, a nod to the land that had brought them together. The image of her, fierce and radiant, stirred a warmth in his chest that no amount of wealth could ever buy. The road to this moment had not been easy. After their tumultuous visit to New York, where Harry had faced the scorn of his mother, Doña Olivia, and the venom of his former fiancée, Beatrice Montemayor, he had returned to Willow Creek with a clarity that burned like a flame. Mira had stood by him, her strength, a beacon through the storm of his family's disapproval. Yet Don Leonardo, his father, had surprised him most. After their confrontation at the rodeo, the patriarch had lingered in Willow Creek for a day, observing Harry's life with a quiet intensity. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he had pulled Harry aside, his voice gruff, but softened by reluctant understanding. "You're choosing a hard path, son," Don Leonardo had said, his gray eyes searching Harry's. "But I see the way you look at her. If she's what makes you whole, I won't stand in your way." It wasn't full approval, but it was enough a crack in the fortress of the Castello legacy that allowed Harry to breathe freely for the first time in years. Doña Olivia had been slower to relent, her letters sharp with admonishments, but even she had agreed to attend the wedding, a gesture that spoke more of curiosity than acceptance. Beatrice, however, had vanished from their lives, her parting words a bitter promise to move on. Harry felt no regret, only relief that the chains of his past were loosening link by link. As the ceremony drew near, the guests began to gather. Amos Panaligan, Mira's father, stood tall in a worn but polished suit, his cowboy hat tilted proudly. Ruth fussed over the floral arrangements, her laughter mingling with the chatter of neighbors who had known Mira since she was a child. Among them was Cassandra, Harry's sister, who had arrived from New York with a hesitant smile and a bouquet of apologies. Her presence was a bridge between Harry's worlds, and her unexpected warmth toward Mira hinted at a friendship waiting to bloom. Cassandra approached Harry now, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, her eyes bright with a mix of pride and mischief. She said, "You clean up lovely, big brother," adjusting his collar. "I never thought I'd see you trade boardrooms for barns, but it suits you." Harry grinned, pulling her into a hug. "Thanks for being here, Cass. It means more than you know." She glanced toward the farmhouse where Mira's laughter drifted through an open window. "She's something special, Harry. Don't mess this up." Before he could respond, the music shifted, the banjo's lively twang, giving way to a soft, soulful melody. The crowd hushed, and Harry's heart leapt as Mira stepped into view. She was a vision, her white lace dress hugging her curves, its delicate embroidery catching the light like a constellation. A single wildflower was tucked into her curls, and her eyes, those deep, soulful eyes, locked onto his with a force that made the world fall away. The aisle stretched between them, a path of petals leading to a future they would build together. As Mira walked toward him, her steps steady and unhurried, Harry felt time slow each moment, a brushstroke on the canvas of his heart. She was strength and grace, fire and tenderness, a woman who had challenged him to be more than his name, to find meaning in the dirt and dreams of Willow Creek. When she reached him, her hand slipping into his, he felt a surge of certainty, as if every choice he'd made had led to this moment. The officiant, a local pastor, with a voice like warm gravel, began the ceremony, his words weaving a tapestry of love and commitment. Harry Castello said, "Do you take Mira Panaligan to be your wife, to cherish in joy and sorrow, in hardship and ease for all the days of your life?" Harry's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving Mira's. "I do, with all that I am." The pastor turned to Mira, her smile radiant as she squeezed Harry's hand. "Mira Panaligan, do you take Harry Castello to be your husband and stand by his side through all that life brings?" Mira's laugh was soft, a melody that danced through the air. "I do, as long as he doesn't call me Mrs. City Boy in front of everyone." The crowd erupted in laughter, the moment's tension dissolving into warmth. The pastor grinned, pronouncing them husband and wife, and Harry didn't wait for permission. He pulled Mira close, his lips finding hers, in a kiss that was both a promise and a celebration. The crowd cheered, hats were tossed into the air, and the band struck up a lively tune, signaling the start of the reception. The celebration was a whirlwind of joy, tables laden with barbecue ribs, cornbread, and peach cobbler, children darting through the crowd, and couples swaying to the music under the willow's canopy. To everyone's surprise, Cassandra initiated a conversation with Clark, Mira's younger brother, their laughter hinting at a connection that sparked curiosity among the guests. Harry and Mira moved through the crowd, their hands entwined their smiles, a shared secret that needed no words. As the night deepened, Harry stole a moment with Mira, beneath the willow, the lanterns casting a soft glow over them. "We did it," he said, his voice low, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. "We're here together." Mira leaned into his touch, her eyes shimmering. "You're stuck with me now, Harry Castello. No running back to New York." He laughed, pulling her close. "Good, because there's nowhere else I'd rather be." But even in the glow of their joy, a quiet undercurrent lingered, the knowledge that their journey was not without its challenges. The Castello name still carried weight, and the world they'd left behind would not forget them easily. Yet, as they stood together, the willow's branches swaying above Harry, knew they could face anything with Mira. The seasons turned gently in Willow Creek, Montana, each one a brushstroke on the canvas of Harry and Mira Castello's new life. Once green and vibrant wheat fields now shimmered gold under the late summer sun, their bounty a testament to the labor and love poured into the land. The Panaligan farm, where their story had begun, was no longer just a refuge, but a home. Its weathered barns and rolling fields, a backdrop to a love defying all odds. Harry, once a billionaire bound by the chains of wealth, and Mira, the fierce heart of Willow Creek, had forged a profound and straightforward life, a tapestry woven from shared dreams and unyielding devotion. Their farm-to-table restaurant, Willow's Bounty, had become a cornerstone of the community, its wooden tables filled with locals and travelers alike, drawn by the promise of fresh, honest food. The menu was a love letter to Montana roasted root vegetables, grass-fed beef and pies from berries in the nearby hills. Harry, once a stranger to the kitchen, now moved with a quiet confidence, his hands steady as he plated dishes alongside Mira, whose laughter filled the dining room like music. The restaurant was more than a business. It was a bridge between their worlds, a place where the wealth of the land met the richness of connection. On a warm evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of rose and amber, Harry and Mira stood on the porch of their farmhouse, their hands entwined. The air was alive with the hum of crickets and the distant lowing of cattle, a symphony of the life they'd built. Mira leaned against him, her dark curls brushing his shoulder, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "Look at us," she said, her voice soft but vibrant with pride. "Who'd have thought a city boy like you could make it out here?" Harry chuckled, his arm slipping around her waist. "I had a good teacher, and a reason worth staying for." Their journey had not been without its trials. The shadow of the Castello family lingered, though Don Leonardo's begrudging acceptance had softened into something akin to respect. Doña Olivia, still aloof, sent occasional letters, her tone warming with each passing month as she saw the life her son had chosen. Beatrice Montemayor had faded into the background, her absence a silent blessing. However, the scandal that had driven Harry from New York, a betrayal by a trusted partner at Castello Enterprises, still cast a faint shadow, a reminder of the world he'd left behind. Yet Willow Creek had a way of healing wounds. The townsfolk, once wary of the outsider, now embraced Harry as one of their own, their laughter and stories, a balm to his soul. Cassandra, Harry's sister, had become a frequent visitor, her city polish giving way to a genuine fondness for the town. Her budding romance with Clark, Mira's younger brother, had blossomed into something tangible, their shared glances and quiet moments a mirror to Harry and Mira's own love. At a recent barbecue, Cassandra had pulled Mira aside, her voice laced with a sincerity that surprised them both. "Cassandra admitted I was wrong about you, her auburn hair catching the firelight. You didn't just win Harry's heart, you showed him how to live. I'm a little jealous, honestly." Mira had smiled, her hand resting on Cassandra's arm. "There's room for you here too. Willow Creek's got a way of opening hearts." The memory warmed Harry as he watched the horizon, the mountains steadfastly against the sky. Their life was not perfect. Carding, the loan shark who had once threatened the Panaligan family, had been dealt with through a quiet settlement funded by Harry's discreet intervention, a secret he kept from Mira to preserve her pride. The farm still demanded endless work, and the restaurant was a labor of love that left them exhausted but fulfilled. Yet in the quiet moments like this one, Harry felt a peace he'd never known in the marble halls of his past. As the stars began to emerge, Mira turned to him, her eyes bright with a question. "Have you ever missed it?" she asked. "The city, the money, the power." Harry considered the question, his gaze drifting to the fields that had become his home. Sometimes he admitted, his voice soft but honest. "But then I look at you, this life we've built, and it's like none ever mattered. You're my home, Mira." Her smile was a sunrise, warm and radiant, and she leaned up to kiss him, her lips a promise that needed no words. They stood there wrapped in each other, and the night the world was a perfect harmony of love and possibility. But their story was not just their own. It was a beacon, a testament to the power of choosing love over expectation, courage over comfort. Harry and Mira had found their truth in the heart of Willow Creek, and they wanted others to find theirs too. Harry pulled Mira close as the night deepened, his voice whispering against her ear. "What if we shared this, our story? This place let people know what's possible when you follow your heart." Mira's eyes sparkled, her laughter soft. "You want to be a motivational speaker now, city boy?" He grinned, undeterred. "Maybe. Or maybe I want the world to see what you've shown me, that love and a little dirt can change everything." Dear reader, the journey of Harry and Mira is more than a story. It's an invitation. Have you ever found a place, a person or a moment that redefined your world? Please share your story with us. Visit our website at insert fictional website, e.g. www.willowcreekstories.com, to tell us about the love, the courage, or the simple joys that have shaped your life. Join our community. Follow our blog for more tales of heart and home, or visit Willow Creek to experience its magic for yourself. Your story matters. Let it inspire others as Harry and Mira's has inspired you.